Then I will call this meeting of the Chelmsford Select Board to order. Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up we have a proclamation under our public service announcements in honor of the Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. And here to receive the proclamation are the Reverend Father Hachatur Kasablian, who's the pastor of St. Valentine's Armenian Church. From the Merrimack Valley Armenian National Committee, we have Arman Jeknavarian and Ara Jeknavarian. And we also have George Simonian, former principal of Chelmsford High School, and Steve Dalgarian. So welcome.
Thank you.
So the town of Chelmsford has a proclamation in honor of Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day, April 24, 2022. Whereas Armenians fled increasing oppression from the Ottoman government during the 20th century, coming to America in search of freedom where they could live in dignity without fear and oppression. And whereas, like many ethnic groups, Armenians settled in Chelmsford seeking a safe place to live, raise their family, practice their religion, and educate their children, they became an asset to the growth and vitality of the town of Chelmsford through their strong work ethic, family values, and civic pride. And whereas the Armenian community of Chelmsford is comprised of the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of the survivors of the Armenian genocide, and whereas 1.5 million American men, women, and children, victims of genocide, perished in the Ottoman Empire from 1915 to 1923, now therefore the Chelmsford Select Board does hereby issue this proclamation in remembrance of the Armenian genocide of 1915 and urge all residents to take part in this observance. This is signed this 11th day of April 2022 by the Select Board and the Town Clerk, Trish Zeris. Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything?
On behalf of the Chelmsford Armenian community here, I want to thank all of you, the board, the town of Chelmsford, for again recognizing the Armenian genocide and allowing us to have this day of remembrance here. As the proclamation said, all of us that are here today are children and grandchildren of survivors. In particular, George Simonian and my Armin and I, our parents, came to get here, fled the genocide as very young teenagers, and settled in Lowell, Chelmsford area. So we're all very grateful to have this opportunity. Remembering genocide, whether it be Rwanda, the Holocaust, Cambodia, or Armenia, is an essential step in not forgetting our history and not allowing it to repeat again. So again, on behalf of the Armenian community of Chelmsford, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ken, next up we have the townwide cleanup.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So for the next public service announcement, we have the townwide cleanup, which is Monday, April 11th through Friday, April 15th. Sign up and pick up yellow bags at the DPW at 9 Alpha Road between 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. Plan your cleanup for the week of April 18th through the 24th. Wear gloves, long pants, long sleeves, and sturdy shoes. Careful of the ticks out there. Wear clothing that will make you visible to traffic. We don't want any accidents on the side of the road. Most importantly, have fun and thank you. If possible, bring your yellow bags to your home curbside. They'll be picked up with the regular trash day until Friday, April 29th. And remember to take photos and send them to sustainability@chelmsford.gov or tag yourself at #ChelmsfordCleanup2022. If you have any questions, contact the sustainability manager at the email address sustainability@chelmsford.gov.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have the Minuteman March.
Yes, and this will be the last time we do this, and I, again, forgot my Tricon hat. Sorry. Chelmsford Minutemen the Chelmsford Minuteman Company invites the general public to join us in our 11th annual Patriots Day March from Chelmsford to Concord. Join the Chelmsford Minutemen, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and fellow citizens in reliving the fateful day of October 19th, 1775 that thrust the colonies into this, what did I say? October, that's my wife's birthday. April 19th, 1775, that thrust the colonies into the start of the American Revolution. Chelmsford Minutemen will be in full outfit, complete with muskets, accoutrements, outfitted like our town sires were in 1775. The Scouts will receive the rare Chelmsford Trail to Concord Patch. So again, join us on Patriots Day, April 18th. We step off from the town common at 4 a.m. We recommend you get there at like 3:30 just to make sure you're on time and know where we're going. We start at the Chelmsford Common, and we end at the Minuteman National Park, the Old North Bridge, around 9 a.m. in Concord. There's a parade after that if you want to stick around. Everybody's welcome. If you have any questions, you can reach out to our captain, Captain John Greenwood, at 6middlesex@gmail.com, or our sergeant, Sergeant Jim Curley. He's at jcurley12@comcast.net.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have public input. Is there anyone who would like to speak during public input? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to committee vacancies.
Committee vacancies, as of April 11, 2022, the Arts and Technology Education Fund is looking to fill one 3-year term. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has one unexpired 3-year term and one 3-year term. The CCA Advisory Committee has 2 1-year terms looking to be filled. Commissions on Disability has one unexpired 3-year seat. Community Action Program Committee has 2 1-year terms. Council on Aging has one unexpired 3-year term and one unexpired 3-year term. One ends in June of 22, one in June of 23. One 3-year term. 5 associate member positions available, staggered in 3-year terms. Cultural Council has 2 3-year terms. Holiday Decorating Committee has 2 1-year terms. Parade Committee, all applicants are welcome to apply. Those expire each July 31st each year. Public Celebrations Committee has 5 1-year terms. Recycling Committee has 1 1-year term. The Tree Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. If you have any interest in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available on the town website. For more information, you can reach out to the town manager here at 50 Billerica Road, Chelmsford, Mass., or email tmoffice@chelmsfordma.gov, or call his office at 978-250-5202. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And next up, we have the transfer of the Class 1 auto dealer license for Nissan of Merrimack Valley. Do we have anyone here? You just need your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Scott Silverman, and my address is 40 Brewster Drive, Needham, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
And so my name is Scott Silverman. I'm one of the 3 managers of the entity that is applying for the license transfer. With me, I'm also an owner of the entity. With me is my partner, Dennis Wilson, who is also one of the owners and will be one of the main, he will be the main operator, but one of the 2 licensees that we've proposed to the town for approval. I can take any questions or address any issues that you'd like. If you want, I can go through the package just very briefly to summarize what material we've provided to the town.
Yep.
Any questions, or would you like him to step through it?
Well, I'm interested that Mr. Silverman said that he's one of the managers, and it looks like the managers that we have listed are David Rosenberg and Dennis Wilson.
Yes,
So-
and I'm an attorney. Sometimes I get a little hyper-technical. An LLC, that's the form of company that we have here. LLCs have managers. They're essentially the board of directors. So I'm one of the board of directors. The actual managers of the stores are going to be Mr. Wilson along with Mr. Rosenberg.
Okay. I was just questioning because I know we did, the police chief did a
Correct,
background check on
Absolutely.
Mr. Rosenberg and Mr. Wilson, but not on yourself, so.
I'm the attorney. I don't get involved in operations. They manage everything.
Okay, thank you.
So this is no longer Dan O'Brien, it was sold?
I'm sorry?
Was it sold from Dan O'Brien?
It is being sold, so we're here seeking an approval for a transfer of the license.
Yep.
We expect to consummate the sale, close on the sale on May 2nd. We have, our application with Nissan has been informally approved. We're expecting the formal approval any day. But obviously, we need to have we're here because we want to get our license so that we're ready to operate on the day of closing.
And is the property being sold, or are you assuming a lease on that?
So we are assuming the lease
Okay.
on the property. There's a letter that was included in the package from the owner of the property. We've been in discussions. We were hoping to maybe negotiate something where we would buy the property, but we're going to end up leasing it. And we have exchanged and are just finalizing an assignment and assumption agreement of that lease that should be completed in the next day. And that's why he was willing to provide the letter saying that he expects that we'll be finalizing one or the other.
Okay.
What's that?
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the Class 1 auto dealer's license currently issued to DMO Chelmsford LLC, doing business as Dan O'Brien Nissan, to RAH Chelmsford NS LLC, doing business as Nissan of Merrimack Valley.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to being a valued member of the community. Thank you.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The next item on the agenda is the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. In your package, you have copies of the 2019 Strategic Plan Report. You have the financial reports that have been produced by our town accountant, Darlene Lucier, who's here this evening, as is Finance Director John Souza. And then we'll touch upon the employment of paid full-time staff and ongoing budgetary support. I just take a moment, just give an overview for the board, but also for the public who may be watching this evening. The Chelmsford Center for the Arts has been in existence for over a dozen years, and Susan Gates has really been a tireless volunteer as the executive director, and she should be commended for such. And I want to express my thanks, and I'm sure many in the community, for her efforts and tireless devotion to the Arts Center for again, over the past dozen years. As you may recall, Susan appeared before this board 10 months ago on June 7th to announce that she'd be stepping down from her position as the volunteer executive director. At that time, she requested and she obtained from the board $335,000 in American Rescue Plan Act funding for the upcoming fiscal year to hire a paid professional replacement. She also noted and described how the funding was for a technical director, for marketing, booking artists, and utility costs for the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. And then she noted that in subsequent years, $174,000 would be required. And again, I reviewed that also from the minutes from that June 7th, 2021 meeting. The chair, you commented at the time, Virginia, that the CCA would seek to increase revenues in order to be self-sustaining or to not have the town contribute $174,000 per year annually. Since last June, we've been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic that probably we didn't foresee at the time, as well as the unstable economy with the highest level of inflation that we're seeing now in over 40 years. Concerned by the ability for the town to provide $200,000 in annual funding to support CCA, I provided the select board at meeting 2 months ago at February 14th, a draft request for proposals to seek a private management and booking company to operate the facility. This is similar to the models for performing arts centers in Lexington, Rockport, and Lowell. 3 booking companies obtained our RFP that was issued last month. However, no bids were submitted. It appears that the limited seating capacity of the CCA is the constraint on its economic viability. And I think when Susan was back here back 10 months ago, she noted the concern about seating capacity in the facility. Once the RFP turned out to be unsuccessful, I immediately posted the full-time position of executive director for the CCA. As of today, the town has received over 30 applications for the position. I expect that interviews and the selection of a candidate can be completed at least 2 weeks prior to Susan's departure. As town accountant Darlene Lucia will detail, $122,000 of the $335,000 of the Community Center for the Arts ARPA funding have been expended to date. I would make it clear to the hired executive director that the need to increase revenues, as again indicated by this board, and the uncertainty of town funding after the ARPA funding is expended. So that's my thoughts this evening. Again, I think the strategic report that you have in your report sort of describes that 174 number that Susan spoke of. I have it a little bit higher because I think the benefits were a little understated. And I'd like now to turn over to Darlene Lucio to just give you an overview of the financial reports for the CCA.
Oh, before
Sure,
Darlene jumps in,
go
can you just give me those numbers again? So how much of the ARPA money's been expended?
22.
122,000, it's right there on the screen,
Oh.
36%. And Darlene can sort of walk you through, what's been expended and how it's been. So, good evening, Darlene, thanks for
Sure.
coming.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and the board.
Darlene, did you have other
No,
questions?
go ahead.
before she
I'll let
starts?
you go and then I'll.
Okay. Yep. The board reached out to me to give you a financial overview of what's been going on at the CCA. So I thought it was probably just best to start from day one. So in 2010 is when the CCA actually was the first fiscal year that they kind of started up. So that's what I started. So I sent you a year-to-date budget report from 2010 to current. What I did was, there's kind of two lines. So the first half of the chart is the revenues that come in, and the piece down below is the expenditures. And what I did was I gave you a total line of fiscal year totals, fiscal year actuals. So it's your revenues minus your expenditures. So I just wanted to show you actually by fiscal year how much was coming in and going out, just to give you by fiscal year. What happens is when we first started, so in fiscal 10, the first year, there was a net profit of $3,031.70, and that's the bottom line where it says the CCA fiscal year end balance per my GL. That's per the GL. What happens with that balance, it rolls forward. This is a revolving account. So she gets that balance, then will start her next fiscal year. So starting 2011, she started with a balance of $3,031.70. But in fiscal year 2011, it was a deficit year. So she ended the year, or I should say the CCA ended the year with $1,681.34 in the red. So that gets subtracted from that $3,000. So her starting balance for 2011 was $1,350.36. That rolls to the next year for her starting balance. So I just wanted to give you how this chart is looking. So if you just take it, basically revenues, expenses, and you go through the fiscal years, not with the rolling balances. We did have many deficit years. 2011 was a deficit year, 2013 was a deficit year, 2014, 2016, 2019, 2020, 21. Doesn't mean that the actual, my general ledger was in a deficit, but just for that fiscal year, revenue that came in and expenditures went out, it had exceeded.
So they dipped into the red one year on a total rolling
One year
balance.
we did dip into the red, but actually that the auditors had to hit our free cash with that, which was,
17,
yes.
okay.
In 2019, the select board at the time wanted to, approved $30,000. It went to town meeting. We approved a $30,000 transfer from free cash to the CCA to help them out a little bit financially. And that was in the kind of like that in 2019 when things were, and that was going to be used, I believed at the time, I think it was for marketing materials and things like that to try to get more marketing out there to get her some more revenue. It really, unfortunately, right after that, we went into 2020 and 2021 with COVID, so it was really not, kind of hard to see if that $30,000 helped because we went into a COVID situation, so marketing materials and things they really weren't running anything over there. Is there any questions with the sheets that I did? If you see the costs, I mean, there's some of it that says paid by town. We were trying to help the CCA in a few years. We were actually helping with paying some of the costs. in some of the electricity and heating costs, we had some energy credits that we had given back to the CCA to help them. There were other departments. It was actually the senior center had large credits that they were never going to, they would never have been able to use. So we transferred those energy credits over to the CCA to help them with their energy costs, because they do have some high energy costs over there in the CCA. So that's why when I did the next sheet was actually, what would it look like if she didn't have to pay for the energy costs? If the CCA energy costs were actually funded maybe through the general fund, and so the only thing that had to be funded through through CCA would be the cost to run programming, and so it would just be the revenue coming in, and then paying for the cost to run programming. So that was the next sheet. I mean, the finances look much better if that was, in that case, if we didn't have it. Most of the years, we would have positive revenue cash coming in there. The only year I think that I had that would have been a deficit if we didn't have utility costs in there would have been 2013. But all the rest of the years, revenue would have covered the costs of the programs there. And that's kind of the same thing I was just running. And that sheet is really just a what-if scenario if we just took out those utility costs. The last sheet I did was the funding that she was approved with ARPA, that the board had approved Susan for the $335,000. She's been submitting her invoices, and I've been tracking that cost because she can't spend any more than the $335,000. To date, we have she has a full-time technical director there that we're paying salary to. This is through March 31st, $38,000 for salary costs for a technical director, $14,757 for the electricity, $296 for gas. Building maintenance, there was just, earlier in the year, she had a custodian in there that was doing some cleaning, COVID cleaning. That was $2,110. Events and programming, those are like the plays and things she's putting on those events, $22,550. Marketing and advertising, $40,928, and just some other charges and supplies that she needs over there. It's $2,895. So that totals up $121,961.74, which is 36.41% of the $335,000 that she's expended to date for that. So she has $213,038 left of those fundings to get her through.
I was just wondering, all those years when the electric cost was so big, why didn't we try to change the electric system?
I think,
I mean, it doesn't make sense that you would spend all that money. I mean, we could have probably put some gas blowers or something in there, and
We've gone to capital budget, and we do have energy upgrades in the building, and that work is being performed. But the problem is it's a 100-year-old building with very thin insulation in the walls. The units that were put in there, part of it was also value engineering at the time when the constraints of the project. So we did what we could, George, but it is a high utilized building that just burns it, and particularly in the winter months of electricity. It's not so much the air conditioning cost; it's more the winter months of the heat.
right, but, I mean, it just seems that, it just kept going on and on and on. And, I mean, we spent, what did we spend, $5-6 million initially on the thing there?
On the rehabs, yeah, but again, they were covering their costs, George. I mean, it wasn't as though it was coming out of the tax levy or the town for the revolving fund. What's different now is when you transition to a full-time paid technical director and now a full-time executive director, it throws the finances into turmoil, because, as Darlene noted, even if you take out the utility costs, you can't absorb that level of personnel costs.
Was the tech director not full-time?
No, not until the 30,000 came from town meeting.
Well, that's what I mean. That's not a transition point as of now. That's been in place since 2019, correct?
since 2019, that
Yes,
that's when that
correct,
came in, that's
2019.
correct.
Right. Before that, there was
Then-
not a there was not a paid director.
I understand, but that's not part of this inflection point. That's current state that we're in right now, where we have a full-time tech director.
So that wasn't a
Right, there
one-time
was a-
deal, right? That wasn't just a one-time payment, that's
Oh, the-
been every year?
The 30,000
The
was one time.
30,000 was a one-time request of
Okay.
town meeting.
That's what I
And
thought.
if you go back to the Finance Committee booklet and everything else, it was a one-time, and as Darlene noted, it was originally,
It was for marketing.
originally
and-
for marketing, and then it turned out being used to pay
For
the technical
salaries.
director.
Thank you.
Well, looking at this statement that you prepared, Darlene, so in 2019, you see the 30,000,
Yep.
but, sorry, I'm trying to squint to see this. The bottom row there, you said that they ended the year with, how much is there? 30,
So in 2019,
31,000?
28?
so, yeah, so there was,
Yeah.
in my general ledger,
It's 2019 town meeting, so it's really almost fiscal.
yeah, let me go back,
yeah.
make sure I have the right, I want to make sure I have the right report with the thing, yes, hold on. So with the 30,000, yeah, so if we didn't, if $30,000 wasn't given to the CCA in 2019, they would have ended that year with only 1,565. The 30
But then you go out the next year, which, again, he was
It
paid.
was a deficit of 18,000, so you took that from the 31, only brought it, so it brings it down to 12. So,
Right, but they didn't get 30,000 that next year,
No.
correct?
no, 30,000 one time was in 2019. That was,
All right, and so then 2021, the 30,000 came out again.
no, just.
No, what I'm saying is you paid the technical director, I'm sorry, not 30.
Yeah, so the technical director's salary was way more than $30,000.
Well, I see it, so it was 12 and 19?
It was 12, and then it was, so in
26 and then
fiscal
29.
19, it was 12,794. In 2020, it was 26,000. In 21, it was 29.
29,100.
And then to date, now the rest is being paid out of ARPA.
But what
which is-
I'm just trying to get to, Darlene, is I'm just following that sort of trajectory. So they rolled the year at 31, then they paid the guy the next year at 26,000, they rolled the year at 12, and then they paid him 29,000, they rolled the year at 2.
Yeah,
So it did look like there might have been a little more income coming in, because it didn't, they rolled the year at 12, they paid him 29, still ended the year with 20. I mean, so it did have some effect, but definitely not enough to offset the total salary.
right,
And if ARPA, with that 22 wasn't there, we probably would be in the hole at that point.
yes.
And then, I noticed on your list, it says marketing and advertising for what's been expended, 40,000. I don't see on your list any marketing and advertising as far as in the budget every year. Where is that money from previous years? Like, what did Sue's, what did
That
the
was really
CCA?
under the under contracted services line. That's really where we're paying for the advertising in that line item. When we did the ARPA funding, I actually worked with Susan. She had a budget. I think she presented that to you, the board.
May I ask a question? So I brought, this isn't in the packet, but if you look up there, I pulled, this is the report that Susan gave us in September of 2021. And so I had the same question on the marketing, because here it was the $5,600, which is like $2,800 a month at that point. She had July and August, right, and then reported to us in September. So Paul, what's driving the 40,000 in
That's a lot of
marketing?
marketing, I guess. is
That's
my
the
point.
marketing and the website. I mean, they've
So
got
we have a digital marketing, she's hired a
website.
digital marketing
Right?
firm that does the digital marketing, and then we have
And so
other-
that's the 2,800 a month?
Yes.
Okay, and then what else is in that 40,000?
Then we have I don't think I have the name of it, the name of the company, but there's another, it's called Marketing, something LLC. There's another marketing firm, we're paying them. There's some more advertising, so there's other things.
I mean, I called Darlene today to ask her, and you gave me like 4 different line items that compose that 40,000.
marketing.
So I'm trying to understand, what are those 4 things? There
One
was
is the
Westport
website, yeah.
Comms,
Right.
Merrimack Media Group, Plank LLC.
Most of it is for the website, and
No, that's
then
the-
there are
that's the
then there are other
2,800 a month.
marketing expenses related to her promotions.
No,
and
she does
activities.
flyers, or I'm not sure if they
Right.
do printing and flyers, and
I guess what caught my eye is we gave you the ARPA money when?
Last, 10 months ago, June of 2021.
So that's running 4,000 a month of marketing, which just seemed a bit higher than what we've been doing.
Yes, yes, it is. And I think if you look at it, you see it's a impressive website. There's no question. And they're paying, she's paying to maintain an impressive website and the outreach and promotions. I think the challenge of it was with the pandemic, you didn't see the corresponding influx of revenue that would have come with it.
The 2,800 a month would have been 28,000, so there's 12,000 extra of marketing that's in that number, doing something other than the website.
Yeah. It
So,
got to be print marketing, social media, or other aspects of it. I don't review her bills on a monthly basis. I don't have that level of detail in terms of,
okay, and the other question I had was, they set up the nonprofit shell. My understanding is to accept donations from individuals or organizations who wanted a 501(c) to put, for their tax purposes, they wanted that type of organization to donate to. So what is the balance in that, and how does that money get applied to the town account? Like, does it get moved over?
I
Or
have
what
no
happens?
I have no insight or information regarding the nonprofit entity. Those monies don't come through the town. They don't come through me. They don't go through Darlene's books. They can charge expenses and other activities to it, but that's a third-party nonprofit, and I don't have that information, nor have I ever sought that information.
I don't have that information either.
So I guess then my question would be, if increasing the donor base and increasing the fundraising is part of the objective that this consultant laid out for us before COVID, would it not be important going forward to understand what goes into that and how it can be or not be put back through the town budget? Or what the balance is? Like, we should have some visibility to that, should we not?
In my discussions with Susan last week, she informed me they've not even filed tax returns on that nonprofit because there hasn't been a sufficient level of revenue going through that fund.
Right, it
It's
hasn't reached the
essentially-
50,000 is my
Exactly.
understanding.
Right,
But
exactly.
there's, I guess, from a pure implementation standpoint, what was envisioned when that was put in place, and how would that money help cover? Because if it's still going to exist, I guess, if you don't know, that's fine, Paul,
Yeah,
but
I
we
don't
would
know.
have to understand that, right? If that's going to be part of where the donation base goes. It can't just live in the nonprofit shell. Can it? Somehow legally, you got to figure out how to move the money around, I would think.
Yeah.
Right, but again, the only evidence I've seen is when I drove by, I saw a thermometer on the sign that said fundraising goal, and it didn't really rise that high. I think it was around $30,000 or something was what I saw when I rode by for their COVID substance.
question.
I know, but it's not really the question,
Right, but I don't know.
Yeah, we don't-
Again,
yeah.
No, I know.
I've treated.
I heard the answer.
Yeah, I've treated it as almost as a,
Yeah.
the same.
the Friends of the
It's like the
Library.
Friends of the Library, the Friends of the Senior Center. I just don't, that's out of my lane, domain, what have you. I know the board keeps asking and making the same statements as we want to see a path toward sustainability. And-
Well,
and-
yeah.
And I think that's been the concern that I've been raising in terms of why I issued the
Right.
RFP.
No, I know.
And my concerns going forward, where I can't sit here and comfortably say, oh, yes, we'll be able to absorb this in the fiscal '24 budget, because I don't see how that's going to be possible.
Yeah, well, my real question is not seeing the next 3 years pro forma going out. So there's some investment coming in here, okay? They're clearly spending more on marketing and so forth, and there's going to have to be some kind of a pro forma, in my opinion, as to what this is going to do and what the expectations are for the next 3 years out. Also, you had mentioned what you'd be talking to the candidates about. Well, this would be one of those things that I'd be wanting to talk to them about, is how do they see this pro forma? This is going to be kind of the expectation, for where we see this thing going, and they should understand that up front. You know what I mean? That's what I kind of see that's missing in this whole thing. Everything's retrospective, or everything's historical, and I'm really, okay, but based on that history and the people that know, it would be nice to see.
And I think that was laid out in
And
that
right,
report, and that was
and
laid out
to
in the
Mark's
Building a
point,
Sustainable Future. It's laid out there.
And this was this was her 3-year recommendation, right? So I think that's, I support
agree,
Mark's
yeah.
point.
Until
like-
COVID hit.
Yeah, I just, no, I get that,
But even
you know,
with
we're-
COVID now,
We're trying to recover. We know what the situation is. I mean, outside of the question about the nonprofit, which I think is a valid question, is just what's the expectation going out? Because that's essentially what Virginia asked last
June.
last June, right.
In general, she asked about it, the sustainability, and I'm thinking by this time we should have a pro forma.
And another question, and again, I don't want to come across the trick here, but you said you don't look into Susan's expenses every month, and you don't look at them. Who does?
Well, I mean,
We see it for a revolving fund, but that's,
she puts through invoices, and as long as there's funding source and her invoices are legal and eligible to be paid under
Which I'm sure
her-
they are.
Yep.
And they are,
Yeah.
I mean, then she's allowed to pay those. I mean, we don't, I mean, it's every revolving account, as long as the invoices are lawful and there's a funding source for them, then I go ahead and make payment of those. When there's not a funding source, and I've held her invoices before and said, there's not enough revenue, and I know the treasurer would contest to this because I've been to with him and I'm thought, can you tell me if you have any revenue that she might have dropped off that we need before I can pay these invoices? And you need to make sure there was money in the accounts before I could make payment to some of the invoices.
The best example we can give is the North Town Hall. Runs the same model. They come
Same
in,
model,
they have
yeah.
signed contracts for leasing it to a church on Sundays, and they have events going on at the North Town Hall, and then when they need to pay invoices, they go through the revolving fund. But neither Darlene, myself, John, or whatever, we don't have oversight where we're sort of looking, well, who are you leasing, who are you running, what's your occupancy, all that other stuff is, as we said, the understanding going back a dozen years was the town's providing and maintaining and caring for the facility. You operate within the facility, cover the utility costs, and go forward.
Yeah.
And that's where we've been on this. And that's where we are today. And these concerns and flags get raised 10 months
Obviously,
ago.
because when the change came and there was 175,000 being added because of two paid positions, that, we were saying, okay, so how's this going to work going out? So, that's the big change.
Exactly.
I think if we had a lot of the information, we may not have voted all that money to them at the beginning. It's just my opinion, but, and I'm not saying anybody didn't do their job, I'm just saying maybe we should have put a little harder at it, because it seems like all of a sudden now there's a lot of money being spent, and I don't know if there's what's booked. I mean, does anybody know what's booked in the next 2 or 3 months?
Yeah. I think the real question is really trying to understand it, because it's not our business, running the CCA.
Right.
And we're just trying to understand with this investment, what do they expect this thing to do? So out in 3 years, maybe they're close to breaking even again.
Well,
I
think it's
don't
very
know.
clear by Susan's comments recently, we've all seen them. She expects that the town will step up and provide $174,000 minimum to subsidize the operations of the CCA. It's very clear. I mean, hell, I've been hearing about it for the last month. I mean, that's very clear. And when my conversation with her in the last 2 weeks have reiterated that fact is she is looking for the town to bring in the CCA into the operating budget of the town. That's why you see those numbers about what percentage of the town's $149 million budget $200,000 is. It couldn't be clearer to me. And again, I've been sort of thrown under the bus in the last few weeks, but I've made it clear that part of my responsibility in the big picture is to look forward for the community. And my concern is, and I'm going to be like a broken record, it's not just this issue, my concern is the town's long-term financial, viability going forward. And in fact, John and I have a report at the printer that's going to come out with the budget book for town meeting. We foresee deficits, for lack of a better word, looking out, beyond fiscal '23, because all you have to do is look at what's around us to see what's happening. As residents and as government operators and everything else, in terms of when you're in an environment where inflation is running 7%, and Proposition 2.5 allows you to increase your tax levy by 2.5%, it doesn't work. And then you see the issues that are going on that we haven't seen in the U.S. economy in 40 years.
So,
It creates some uncertainty, and that was hence one of the reasons why I pivoted to an RFP in February, saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe a third party. And it even followed on the recommendation of this, saying that in many communities, the CCA is an independent nonprofit organization that runs independent of the town.
so I think you've just hit on some really key things.
Yeah.
And I'd like to look at them in a different light.
Sure.
Okay? So, the event RFP that we all thought was a good idea, and we got no responses. Those would be for-profit companies
That's correct.
managing the CCA. And I think the feedback that you got was that as a for-profit company, we can't do this and make enough profit.
That's correct.
Okay? So for me, that is why that didn't pan out, not because it's not possible to generate more revenue or a stronger donor base with the CCA. Okay?
Okay.
If what they
I'll
needed to
follow you.
make
Go
was
ahead.
400,000 on 170, okay, I
follow you.
believe that.
Yep, I follow you. Yep.
Okay? So let's take that one off the table.
Okay.
I'm looking at this report from 3 years ago, and I get COVID happened. But in this report, I mean, I went through every page. There are all kinds of things here that I think, and it's nobody's fault, that just didn't get the focus because it was 2019 and then COVID happened. But here's a statement. The advisory board is committed to build toward a goal of $180,000 in funding annually by 2022, which will cover a salary for an executive director, technical director, part-time marketing administrative. So that was all part of this 3-year vision that was laid out in this plan. There are things in here about, I understand the CCA is not a nonprofit organization, right? And Susan's made that very clear. I'm a department. I report to the town manager. But what the consultant said is in other communities, it is either a nonprofit or it's run like a nonprofit. And there's nothing that says that even if it's not a nonprofit organization, we can't get an executive director who's full-time and a board supporting them. And the other thing that came in here loud and clear was our advisory board is too small. And I agree with that. I've been on many nonprofit boards, and you got to have 10 or 12 people on that board if you want them to really help with the fundraising and be a development arm, right? So there were, in the business model of how things actually can work, I think we got waylaid by COVID. And I think Susan and the board and you or whoever probably didn't have the opportunity to even try to implement what was here in 2019. Because if you did, it's 2022, and we would have been at a point where we had a donor base built and other things, and looking at, I mean, there's things in here about the programming, the community fed back.
Yep.
Families with
Yep.
small children, we are, 70% of us want to use it, but the programming isn't there for us. So, and it's not a criticism, it's just, this has been a wildly successful art center, and I think we have an opportunity to make it more successful, but we got to get our heads in the right place, and we have to frame, if we're bringing this executive director in, it's got to be somebody who's going to, has the experience base and is going to be able to wrap their arms around trying to get this 3-year pro forma in place.
Right.
And we're going to have to, we're at an inflection point. We don't have a volunteer director anymore. You know, things are changing, and we're going to have to change with it if we're going to sustain the CCA. And I said this before when people asked me, and I'll say it again here. I don't believe that $200,000 a year in perpetuity is the only option, because we haven't tried yet. We had a plan in 2019, and we got COVID. It pulled the rug out from underneath us. So,
Right.
that,
and-
you know, in my opinion, and I'm sorry, Mark.
No, go.
And I'm looking, you know, when I look at where the money that we have left in Darlene's spreadsheet,
213.
yeah, so
To
if,
date, there's $7,000 in the account.
right, so if I just say, okay, well, 213 divided by, there's a monthly burn of 13,500. So if I take the 213 divided by 13.5, I've got 15 months left, but that doesn't include the salary. That include, I mean, assuming we're still going to burn 40,000, whatever that is per month in marketing. So we have 12 to 15 months left here. When we said we were going to allocate the 335 in June of last year, it was with the understanding that we were going to pull in an executive director like right away, and that we were going to work towards building that pro forma that Mark talked about. I understand things got delayed, and then we had the different ideas after January 1st, but now we're kind of at the same point, and it seems like we have enough money to go for one more year, because that 335 was originally supposed to be for one fiscal year.
Right, but Susan made it very clear she wasn't leaving until May. So, and we've had this discussion before, there was no understanding that we were going to hire somebody in September, or October, or November. Because why would we pay for a director if the current volunteer person
Fine.
isn't leaving until May?
So,
And that was why it didn't happen until now.
that's fine, whatever, peace. But I'm still at a point where I don't think we gave this plan a shot from 2019.
Yeah, I actually thought that part of the ARPA money was to help to kickstart it again towards that plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Essentially.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not trying to hold a $10 to the grindstone here, but that's really where we were trying to head, and to see where we could go in a scenario like has been outlined here in this summary, so.
And I agree with all that.
Yeah,
but-
no, I
But quite frankly, I don't think I'm responsible for it.
Oh, no.
And I just want the board to understand, I don't have the resources, nor do I have the staffing to be in there and overseeing the CCA's
No, I don't think
operations.
anybody's trying to.
No, but I just want the board to
necessarily say
understand where
that.
I'm coming
I think what
from.
we're trying to say is that I think we do have an issue here that we need to just kind of disassemble and put back together in some fashion that would make it as viable as it can be, especially when you're trying to attract somebody in here. They need to understand what the expectation might look like, and, and so forth. I mean, I'd certainly want to know if I was coming into a job that, hey, these are the expectations, and is this doable with 200 seats, with however many rooms are in there, rent out, et cetera, et cetera. So are there other revenue opportunities that they could bring in, where they could close the gap and they could kind of, start lining up with it? I don't know,
And I
And
would
I've
find-
heard-
Was there ever, when town meeting voted to put the capital funding into the building, was there ever an expectation that it would be profitable, or that it would just become cost neutral?
It was the understanding that they would cover the cost for their facilities. And that was why when we formed the committees back a dozen years ago, we called it the North Town Hall Advisory Committee and the Center Town Hall Advisory Committee. And that was the expectation. And I think the model was very similar to what we do with the forum and the golf course and everything else, is that
Right.
they don't become part of the tax levy, they become independent operation centers with their own revolving funds.
Right,
And that was
and
how we
that's-
envisioned it.
when you came up with the thought of doing it, and going out with an RFP similar to what you did with the golf course, that was a great idea. I mean, we gathered and we gained some information, certainly on that, from the folks that came in and expressed why they didn't think it was viable. So that, it's helpful for us.
Am I
Well,
just?
and I know John wants to say something, but can I just ask one other question? So I get that you can't be, you say you can't be responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Arts Center. But do you agree that if we choose to fund a tech director in the next year, that you and this board have to take some responsibility to help them succeed?
Excuse me. What do you mean, help them succeed?
Well,
In
do
other
we
words,
hire-
what I would
do
do
we
is,
hire somebody and we
we have a hired technical director today.
I'm sorry, I'm executive director.
Yes, we would help them succeed. We'd provide them with this report, we'd provide them with the financials. I've asked the chair of the CCA Advisory Committee to be part of the interviewing process.
Great.
And clearly Susan's not going away. She's stepping down as volunteer director, but she's staying in the community and will be, I envision, actively involved with the CCA's future, so that's not going to change.
Okay.
But I'm assuming that those responsibilities, as you said, are going to be done by the CCA Advisory Committee with the executive director and perhaps with support from the nonprofit organization. And again, why raise the flag, in terms of,
But
I'm skeptical, and that's my concern. And I think we all are, because, put it this way, if you've got a model that all acknowledgements are that your seating capacity limits your revenue capacity, you need an outside revenue source. And when I did the RFP, I drafted it so broadly to see if somebody could use it for weddings and conferences and so forth. That's the model, or you're going to have to get some benefactors. And if that doesn't materialize over the months, then you're right, we're going to be back in a situation where the ARPA money's going to have been exhausted, and where are we at? And I think that goes back again to your comment last June, was you either got to, maybe it's self-sustaining or significantly reduce the cost of the operations, which is where it is. All I'm saying is 10 months have passed, we're no further along than we were. And yes, I understand it was a tough COVID year, but we're still under this constraint. But again, I think the headwinds are coming even stronger.
And if I get there's some skepticism,
Yeah.
and all I'm saying is that if we decide to move forward, you have to be accountable, and we have to be accountable for this.
But tell me what it is we're supposed to do. What are we supposed to do to hold them accountable? Do you want monthly budget reports? What is it?
Well,
What are we to do?
how do we help them implement this plan? How do we
I can't
make
expand
sure,
their
How do
boards.
we make sure it's on track? Should we bring the CCA board here periodically with the new executive director?
Exactly, I think that's.
And it's not about come in front of the firing squad. It's about, let's understand, this is going to be a challenge, and we've either got to be all in,
Yep.
or they're going to be all out.
Right.
The,
And I think we've been all in supportive of them over the last decade.
Right, but it's been a different model.
Right, it's a different
Yeah,
business
it's been a
model.
different
That's all I'm
model. We
saying.
get that history. It's just, how do we do it going forward? We need to be more informed and have a better understanding,
Yeah.
and be able to track something against the plan, so we understand, the ups and downs of the potential of that facility.
We're going to be learning.
Right.
were there any takers on the first 2 floors, Paul? Renting out does that work? Does that make it?
No, it was an RFP for the entire building.
See,
There was
yeah.
it was broad. I mean, the only thing that came to the first 2 floors was the housing authority thing, and that's gone away.
Right, I'm not even discussing that.
But it wasn't like we're issuing an RFP for this floor, that floor, what have you. It was for the
I'd
entire
like to know what the
facility.
revenue is by floor, to see where the revenues and what's in there, and kind of understand what that's all about. So is the 200 seat, does that bring in 80% of it? Are the studios, is the little cafe downstairs?
I
That'd
think
be
the
interesting to me.
CCA report kind of gave the indication that most of the revenue comes from the performance hall, and a little bit from the lounge.
Very,
and the,
very
small from
very
the
small.
studios.
Well, that's
Very
what
small
I,
amount came from,
The
okay,
studios.
good, because that's what I saw. And so if I was coming in, I'd wonder, well, what are you charging, and what's the occupancy rate, and can I increase that? So there's one piece I might be able to do. Okay, next, and you keep moving from there to try to find out how you can increase revenue and make it more viable. I'm not saying.
Or your donation base, which is part of your revenue.
Yeah, kinda.
I mean, Susan raised $100,000 for a
Right.
Steinway, and when she stood here in June, she said, we've had $40,000 things pop up through the years, and we've figured out how to
Yeah.
raise the money to fund them, so I think there's an opportunity here, but.
Yeah, I just think we have a
John,
responsibility
did you want to say
help.
something? Oh, Darlene, you weren't done either? What's that? You weren't done either?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, town manager. No, I just wanted to mention, as we, just sitting there listening to the discussion, as we listen to while we think about revenue, clearly adding these salaries, if we don't increase the revenue base, it's just not going to work. Whether
Right.
it's a business, whether it's a governmental agency. One problem I see is we have to really step back and ask ourselves, I obviously by what I've seen in the media, there is support out there, but how, realistically, how many donations, how big is this donation base that they're going to try to tap into? I can give you some personal experience. The CCA approached me back in fiscal year 21, and, we all recognize that COVID was an unbelievable circumstance for the country and everyone, and, of course, you would expect the donations dried up. They approached me about inserting a small stuffer in the tax bill envelopes. And so discussion went back and forth. You may remember that it was a 1/3 page stuffer. And so that was mailed to just about 13,800 taxpayers. So that's every resident, every business taxpayer in the community. And, it was seeking donations. And after some discussion back and forth, I have a small budget for stuffers. I don't think we had that many stuffers that year. I agreed to fund, everything was around $650 to insert the stuffer because for ease of operations, it was easier to have the printer that's mailing the tax bills, print them, they were relatively inexpensive, stuff it with their equipment, and then you're not trying to ship stuff down to the printer that was created by someone else that may be problematic, may jam up the machines. So the long and short of it, I asked Darlene just for the revenue. That was inserted in the second quarter bill of fiscal year 21, so that would have been in the bill that was mailed in the fall and was due November 1st, 20, I believe it was. And so this next, you would expect there would be an influx of money in November and December. There were some donations. How many we can attribute to the tax bills? The total donations for those 2 months, according to Darlene, was just about $2,600. I'm just giving you round figures. I can give you exact figures, but get you exact figures. So if you net that out, the expense to put in the stuffer, you're talking a couple $1,000, and you did a mailing to every single taxpayer in the community. I realize there's other ways, but that would be my concern is, when you look at this, are we talking about a whole groundswell of residents donating to this? Are we talking about just one or two wealthy benefactors that are going to contribute to this? That would be my concern. It's just the broad, how broad is the revenue base? That would be my concern going forward.
It
And
depends on how good the
I think the
executive
consultant
director is.
had like a number of different ideas. She had like 6 paragraphs in terms of revenue generation.
Right.
Point taken. Darlene, did you have something else you were gonna?
I mean, just kind of just to piggyback on John's, I just think that the building, Susan has done, I think, again, I commend her because she did do it all volunteer. I just think there could have been a lot more revenue generated. I think that building could have been used first floor, second floor, down in the
Yeah.
cafe. I think there could have been more uses to those floors. I understand, she did do a lot of I attended some of the plays, they were great. But I think that bottom floor and that main floor, there really probably could have been other uses. I'm not doing a comparison with the North Town Hall to the CCA, but, the North Town Hall, they'll rent to a yoga class. I mean, so they'll have yoga in there. They have a church. They'll have, somebody who wants to do a family breakfast and have people in. They'll rent to, to people to do that. So, I mean, there is, you can do that type of generation of revenue to get that. The North Town Hall has not once ever, come to the town and said, I can't, pay for anything. They've never been looking for any funding from us at all. And I just wanted to also say that the facilities part of that building, those buildings, are paid through facilities. The CCA doesn't fund any of that. So the elevator, if the elevator breaks down, if an air conditioning goes down, the sprinkler systems have to be inspected every year. The elevator has to be inspected every year. The facilities general fund does pay for the facilities work in that building. So she doesn't, I just wanted, somebody asked me that recently, and I just wanted that those are all paid. Public buildings does pay for all of those facilities. Things that have to be done over there for licensing and maintenance work and things like that are all paid.
Just curious, any idea on average what it costs
Yes, they're spending about it's about $30,000.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 to 38. I think they paid about 38 this year of work over there. Yeah.
Susan Gates has joined the Zoom call.
See that? Susan, did you want to say something?
Actually, I think that right now, maybe I want to listen to what everybody is saying because I just got in. I'd like to wait and listen.
Okay. Thank you.
That's okay. If you have any question for me, I'm happy to answer it, but for right now, I want to listen to what people are saying.
Thank you.
So if I understand what the board's direction is proceed with the hiring of a full-time executive director, and then we'll get quarterly updates from the new executive director and/or accompanied by the chair of the advisory committee in terms of the progress that the CCA is making towards addressing the revenue deficit in terms of, additional sources of funding and activities and such, and i.e. implementing some of the suggestions from the October 19th study.
Is that, Mark, I think you had a more definitive expectation.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some numbers put to that
Right.
sooner than later, so we just can get an idea of what that might look like, and not
But
that,
who's going to assemble those numbers? The new director?
The new
well, I know we're not.
No, and I
know nothing about this.
No, and I say, and I don't. It's not fair on the new executive director, whoever he or she may be, to do that. So, who's going to do that?
Yeah, but if you're
I think it would have to be
going to assume a job like this, I mean, within a month or two, you better be in a position where you understand the financials.
That's what I'm saying. But it's not going to start. It's not going to start out, upon hire. Is my point. You've got to give that person some time to get their legs under them and get a lay of the land in the market. That's what I'm saying. So I think, as I said, it'd probably be a quarter before you'd get that person. If we hire this person, they get them on board in May, you're probably talking around July where somebody comes in and says, okay, I've been here 8, 10 weeks or so, and this is what I see as a plan going forward, having worked with the advisory board, having consulted with Susan, who's, obviously 12 years' experience and still in the community in terms of the CCA operations. That's what I would envision would be when you would see that type of a prospectus, probably in July, right? I think that's realistic. I don't think I don't think we're going to see anything before then.
I mean,
Also, it's going to take some time for somebody to then implement that and book it and then generate the revenue from that.
Well, that's why he said a 3-year pro forma.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's see where it goes.
I feel bad, I would have liked some input from Susan, and I don't want to rehash the last 30 minutes of our discussion.
Closer to an hour.
Yeah.
It's been an hour.
Okay, an hour of our discussion, but,
45 minutes.
and it's too much to even just give an overview to her. But I think we understand where it needs to go. We have the money to fund the next year or two because of what was approved for ARPA.
The next year.
Yeah, in the
I
next
would say.
15 months.
And I mean, I would say, Paul, that should be a clear understanding with whomever you're interviewing.
Yes. Yeah, well, like I said,
And if you have somebody with the right experience base that's confident in what they can do, I don't think that would be an issue.
I don't think it would take long for somebody to figure it out if they've been in the
No,
business.
this is a
you know.
great report.
No, it wouldn't take them long.
No. And I think the other thing that, is never mind, it's probably part of their plan, but I go back to the board. Maybe there's something we can do to help get more people on that board, because 6 people is not enough for the business model that's here. And I guess, Paul, the other conversation, the other point, when we were talking about accountability and not being responsible for the day-to-day operations, this is another difference in the inflection point, though, where you've had a volunteer, but now you're going to have somebody who's a direct report to you, and I don't understand why that's not any different than any other town department, where they have some accountability to you in some form.
Oh, I would agree.
Okay,
But it's different when you have volunteers.
understood.
Yep,
Okay.
I would agree.
Pat or George, we've been talking a lot. Do you have anything to say?
I think Paul pretty much has an idea of where we expect this to go, so I look forward to see what happens in the next 3 to 4 months.
George?
I'm hoping that the hire for wouldn't take that long to know, You know, I mean, you can go into any community, if you've experienced it as a fundraiser, and in the business, and then know what kind of acts to bring in, I don't think it would take that long to produce some income, get some activity anyway, so bring in go to the right people, talk to people who want to get on the board, talk to them, and I think probably the problem is the board right now is probably all from the same friend group, and I don't mean that in a detrimental way, it's just unfortunate that I think you gotta get a more diverse group, town-wide, or even go outside the town, if you have to. Bring in some people, some philanthropy.
And Paul, when I look at the spreadsheets from Darlene, I mean, there's been years where the actuals have been 30,000 in the black, 11,000, 11,000. So when you say $200,000 a year, some of that would already be covered if they are able to sustain at minimum what they've been doing. Is that correct? What's in the 200,000?
Susan's got her hand.
Well,
Okay.
I'd like you to answer me.
The 200,000 is, you look at the salary for an executive director, the salary for the technical assistant, benefit costs for the two of them, and then miscellaneous costs that go along with that. It's going to approach 175 to
The tech
200,000.
director's already in here, is it not? From 2019 forward, but what you're saying
Not
is
at-
you
not
weren't
at the-
covering it.
Not at,
Full rate.
not at the full-time
Okay,
rate that we're
okay, I
using
got
right
it.
now.
The numbers
Thank
are
you.
low.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Sue's hand's up.
Oh, Susan, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I guess what I'm a little confused by, and I apologize, I just couldn't come into the meeting until now, is we bring in enough money to cover everything but the salaries of the two individuals that are needed, and I think you've been given now the report by Janet Bailey, the technical director, and whoever holds the position that I have right now, and utilities. Those are those we can't pay salaries. We bring in enough money to run the programming and service the community groups. Now, one of the things that I think it's really important for you to understand is I'm kind of hearing, oh, we need to get somebody in who can raise money. Well, that isn't what the direct job is. It's not a development director. A development director raises money. That's their job to do that. But that's not what being the executive director for the CCA is. It's not just that. And I guess I'm confused about, oh, we could bring in people, other acts and people from outside and whatever. We're doing that. It takes money to do that. And we're using some of the ARPA money to bring in performers. If you look on our website, you will see the things that are coming up that we would not have been able to bring without having that jumpstart ARPA money. But I think you've also been told that Spectacle Management was not interested because it's a 200-seat house. You can't bring in, if you sold every single ticket to every single performance, you would not bring in enough money to pay the salaries of these people. What we're really doing is we're providing a service to our community, to the arts community. That's what we're doing. We're not there to be just a theater bringing in outside performances and selling tickets. So I think that's all I want to say right now. I know right now we're working on putting together the financials in a different way than accounting does it, because we break things down in a more granular way. So you will be able to see that maybe in another week or so.
That would help.
Any comments?
My guess is, again, I don't want to restart the whole conversation. So
Yeah,
if she's going to prepare more financials that give us a deeper look into everything,
great.
and she can take time to go back and watch the last hour of our meeting, maybe we recircle at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, and if the conclusion from Susan and the Board of Directors Advisory Committee is that no matter what is done, they cannot cover the cost for the technical director and the executive director salary and benefits and utilities, then where does that leave us? And that's the concern, because
Well, again, that's part of
That's-
our original conversation.
Right,
So
exactly.
let her
That's
watch
what I'm
that,
saying.
let her get her those
But
numbers.
I think we need the answer to that question from the advisory committee and Susan, is that the, is that the demarcation line? If that's the case, I'd like to know it now, rather than trying fruitlessly for the next 12 months to try to achieve something that
Can't be achieved.
can't be achieved.
To be continued.
Okay. So next week is probably too soon for what Ken was saying?
Yeah, it sounds like they're not going to have this to us, but they wouldn't have it, we'd have to have it for the packets for Thursday. I don't see we're going to have it in
Okay.
2 days, for 3 days, so.
Okay.
Okay. So Paul, next up is town meeting?
Yeah, our primary focus of tonight's meeting is to select board's recommendations on town meeting warrant articles. Spring annual town meeting is 2 weeks from tonight. As I mentioned earlier, the budget book has gone to press. The finance committee has wrapped up its recommendations, and their book, I believe, is at press as well. There's 35 articles. The finance committee endorsed all of the articles, all but, there was one article having to do with the fitness park. There was one dissenting vote. Other than that, every vote of the finance committee was unanimously in favor, with all members present of the finance committee. So what I'll do is I'll walk you through the presentation, answer any questions you have regarding the warrant articles, because as you know, you'll be asked at town meeting the select board's recommendations on the articles.
Just
So
a point of order for the board. As we go through this, do you want to do what we've done in the past and just vote on each one as we go through it?
I think that's a little bit quicker.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. And again, you signed the warrant in February, and hopefully John, Darlene, and I can answer any questions that you may have. For Article 1 is no vote. It's to hear reports of town offices and committees. At that point, we are scheduled to hear a master plan update, and then we'll give a financial overview for the town meeting. So again, no vote. Following that is a consent agenda in consultation with the town moderator, John Curlin. There's 12 articles that will be taken up under the consent agenda. They're listed there, and again, I'll go through them when we arrive, but that's how the town meeting will unfold. The first article of action is Article 2, and that's amendments to the current fiscal year operating budget. This is customarily the first action article at every spring town meeting. It's basically making adjustments to the budget that was approved, 2 months before the start of the fiscal year, and then what really happens over the course of the fiscal year. Darlene has contacted department heads and conducted analysis of remaining payroll and expenses for the remainder of the fiscal year. And we have a total of $353,780 of transfers within the budget. The funding will come from the benefits and insurance expenses line item to the following 4 budgetary line items: public safety personnel services, $145,000, public safety expenses, $85,000, municipal facilities expenses, $98,780, and community services expenses, $25,000. The next slide gives you the detail of the financial report of those transfers. Again, that Darlene, worked with me and John and the department heads to pull together. On slide 6, in the area of public safety, we have 3 areas: inspection salaries, fire salaries, and police salaries. Inspection salaries, again, we had an employee hire. We have payouts, for employees who depart, particularly a longstanding employee, and you'll see this repeatedly come up in terms of when an employee goes, that we pay them their accrued vacation and other time owed to them. That happens in the fire salary for $60,000. Payouts, as well as the COVID response was there. And then the police salary one is, you see it's retirements, like, for example, when the deputy police chief departs. We have to pay him his accrued time. That's never budgeted for and is unforeseen at the time of the budget. But the animal control officer pay increase, I want to note that even that we were compensated by Tingsboro, that money, again, goes into local receipts. It's not a revolving fund. So I just want the board to know that there was no pay increase for the animal control officer. It's the fact that we had the additional responsibilities, which resulted in additional compensation for that position, which we pay, but we can't put the revenues into the operating budget. On the fire expense side, they had $60,000 for fire vehicle apparatus maintenance, as well as the impacts from higher gasoline and diesel fuel. On the police side, during the course of the year, the chief purchased scheduling software and also new defibrillators for the cruisers. And then facilities, you see a number of items listed that were unprepared capital investments, such as the Southborough School condensation tanks, rooftop unit replacements at the school admin building, and burner installation, for example, at Southborough School. And then the other one, the final one, is the veterans expense, $25,000. There's been an increase in veterans benefits drawn from the town in accordance with the allocation and allowances that veterans are provided for. That $25,000 overage, will get 75% of that reimbursed to the town, but it lags usually 15 or 18 months in our receipts from the state. So those are the adjustments and overages for the current fiscal year operating budget.
Any questions on Article 2?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thanks. Article 3 is no action. That was a placeholder for collective bargaining agreements. So then Article 4 is the Neshoba Tech proposed fiscal year 2023 assessment at $3,729,524. That's only a nominal increase from our current assessment because of the town's declining enrollment. The increase for Neshoba Tech is like $8,000 from the current year. Again, Finance Committee supported it 8-0. And again, this was all provided in the budget breakfast in detail that Neshoba has provided to the community.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 4.
All those in
Second.
favor? Oh, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 5 is the school department budget for the Chelmsford Public Schools for the upcoming fiscal year. The budget is $67.5 million, which is a 3.85% increase for the upcoming fiscal year. I know I provided for you Dr. Lang's budget proposal, which has been unmodified by the school committee, and that is the budget that will be presented to town meeting.
Any discussion? All the, motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 6 is the general government fiscal year 23 operating budget. You can see the raise and appropriate is almost 70 million. Then you have some other miscellaneous funds coming in from the revolving funds and benefit utilizers that, again, offset our benefits budget. And then basically in the next few pages, you have the individual line items that go from municipal administration, personnel and expenses, down to debt service and interest. As noted on slide 17, it's a $149 million total operating budget, including the schools. $116 million is the property tax levy, $19 million in state aid, $10.6 million in local receipts, and $3.6 in other funds. On slide 19 shows you the significant expenditure adjustments outside of personnel and payroll that we've talked about at this table at previous meetings, having to do with solid waste and recycling, fixed contract costs, the higher costs for road salt, for contracted snow removal, gasoline and diesel fuel, the fact that we'll have 3 elections in the upcoming fiscal year because we've got the state primary in September and the general in November, as opposed to just the one-town election that we had this year. Facilities equipment repair, the pond weed control is now part of a recurring budget, and DPW road materials.
The only comment I'll make, and just to Paul's Again, we're doing this budget, we're using 1.1 million of debt service that we normally paid in the past to fund this year's budget, in essence. I mean, we normally have that debt service, and now it's gone away, and we're using that for the budget.
Yeah, but don't confuse debt service with excluded debt service.
Oh, no, I know.
Because in other words, that 1.1
separate.
million, right, but of that debt service, just pull the number, but virtually all of it is excluded debt service. The excluded debt service goes down by 1,111,605. The non-excluded, i.e. the debt service that's funded within the operating budget, goes down by $4,432. So I don't want to give the impression that we're replacing debt with operating expenses. What that excluded debt service going down by 1.1 million means is that your tax levy increase will be moderated by $1.1 million otherwise. So that's almost like a $70 credit that you're going to receive by the fact of that 1.1 of excluded debt coming off the books. But I just want to make that clear.
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 6.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you. Article 7 is the, there it is, I've got to get my page here. Oops. Finance Committee Reserve Fund, again, that's level funded at $400,000 to meet extraordinary and unforeseen expenditures that arise during the course of the fiscal year in the town's $149 million budget.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 7.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 8 is the capital budget. It's $3,770,307. John has presented that previously in terms of how it is dispersed amongst the general budgets and departments of the town. And again, you have the summary slides in there.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 8.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 9 is the historic preservation restriction for the Fisk House, and that is in your packet this evening. We were provided it by town council. It was signed a week ago tonight by the Historic District Commission and the property owner. Basically, what it provides, and to everyone's satisfaction, including yours, I hope, when you voted later this evening, is basically it provides that the exterior of the Fisk House shall not be altered outside of casualty or something extraordinary that would require the approval of the Historic District Commission that you can do something there other than routine maintenance. And then it also makes sure that they maintain the building in sound appearance and condition. So that's the preservation restriction.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 9.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 10 is the purchase of the municipal parking lot in the town center. At your last meeting, you approved the purchase and sale agreement in the amount of $575,000 for the purchase of the 1.89 acre parcel of land located in the town center.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 10.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 11 is the tennis and basketball courts at Chelmsford High School. It's for the complete reconstruction of the tennis and basketball courts at the high school, as well as the conversion of the McCarthy School tennis courts into additional parking for the police station and the adjoining McCarthy fields.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 11.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 12 is a school bus tracking system. This was a citizen petition article. I invited Chris Oak to appear at the meeting tonight. I don't see him in the room or on the Zoom call. What I can tell you is he appeared at the last Finance Committee meeting, and the request was, and I think hopefully you'll find it satisfactory, would be to amend the motion to delete the word select board and insert the word school committee. basically saying to ask that
I
the
was going
town.
to ask
I
for
was
that.
going to ask the exact same question.
Because it was pointed out to him that the select board really has no jurisdiction regarding school bus operations and so forth. So when that was done, the finance committee tabled it because they really wanted to allow him to go back to the school committee.
Yeah.
But basically what it's an ask. It's a, could you ask the school committee to investigate implementing a school bus tracking system to allow parents to see the status of their child's drop-off time. Having seen the presentation, his concern was some other communities utilize this system, and his concern was that if there was, a weather condition or an incident or what have you, it would really help as opposed to the school having to shoot out emails and outreach to other people. So again, they basically deferred him to the school committee to get an understanding of what this would cost. But again, to make clear, the article is not an appropriation, it's an ask, so.
So did the
Finance committee tabled it.
Oh, they totally
Yeah,
tabled it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind if we ask the school committee to look into this.
Yeah. The worst that can happen is they say no.
Right. I mean, I could see some issues with it, but that's for the school committee to decide, yeah.
Any other discussion?
So would we recommend approval as amended?
Yeah, you can do that, saying you'd approve it as amended to be
So-
school committee, yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 12 as amended to say school committee.
Second.
Do you have more to say, George?
Hmm?
Did you want to talk about it some more?
Second. I mean, I think I would have preferred that would probably pass, but, I mean,
You want to table it? I mean, or pass on it?
We can table
I don't
it
think we should stick our nose in, you know what I mean?
without them having had a discussion about it yet.
Yeah.
That's a valid point.
I can, you
So what would my
want to make
motion
a second? You can
Table.
second it? Somebody else can
Your
second?
motion
I'll
would be to
second- I'll
table
second
it.
If you want me to second, I'll second about it. I don't know.
I don't have
Yeah.
a problem.
I don't know what more we're going to find out. Either they're going to, the school committee would do it or not, and
Well, I mean, I guess to George's point, normally, if we had more notice on this, that somebody was putting a school committee article in, we would have invited the school committee for comment or tried to understand what their comment was, just like we've done with planning board articles, right?
Right.
We don't kind of vote on them in the blind, so
well,
I'm fine with tabling it too, if that's what the board would prefer to
I do like the fact that a citizen took the time to get involved and and basically, there's no financial burden here.
Right.
It's just a
I
formal ask.
second the motion.
All right, we have a,
Good argument.
Okay. All those in favor?
I-
aye.
Aye. Are you
George.
an aye, George?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0.
Sorry.
Article 13 is to establish a special education reserve fund. It's an acceptance of state statute. Just so the board understands what it is it would allow the school committee to transfer funds in a fiscal year into a fund to pay for future fiscal years unanticipated or unbudgeted costs for special education. So the school committee has the authority to put money into it, but to pull money out requires a majority vote of the school committee and the select board. So the school committee has supported this, and the finance committee supported it 7-0 as a way of, again, creating another reserve fund, which, as you note in my note, can't exceed 2% of the annual net school spending, which is about $1.5 million today. So basically what it does is if the schools have money at the end of a fiscal year, they can vote to transfer it into a special education reserve fund to meet future fiscal years' unanticipated or unbudgeted costs. But you can't actually use those monies without a majority vote of the school committee and this select board.
So this will give the town how many reserve funds? This is our fifth?
Yeah, but this is a special one. So they also have circuit breaker money, which is, they have, but this is another one.
Will this be used in consideration of our bond rating or anything?
I don't know how they would treat it. I don't think so, because it's not a stabilization fund, it's not a cash reserve, it's a special purpose.
It's not a stabilization.
It's a special purpose education fund.
Okay. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 13.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 5-0.
Article 14 is Stormwater Management Enterprise Fund. The amounts are listed there, almost $4.5 million for a sewer enterprise fund. The budget increases by 2.5% for the upcoming fiscal year. So basically, it's level operations, you're just providing mainly the salary operations and some miscellaneous expenditure revenues.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 14.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, 5-0.
Article 15 is the Stormwater Management Enterprise Fund. Again, it's $1.5 million, roughly half between personnel and expenses. The budget itself, in terms of the personnel expenses, only goes up by $12,000, or 0.86%. So again, it's almost a level dollar budget in this case.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 14.
15.
15.
15.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Get a typo on that
Yeah,
page.
I
Where's the
went
typo
by
on that
that.
page?
Yeah.
Ken,
Should say Article
Ken and
15.
Pat, could I have your
Oh,
vote?
okay, all right, I'll fix it, thank you.
He said 15 in his motion.
Okay, yes, he did it
Favor?
15, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that, I'll correct that
5-0.
typo, thank you.
Just a,
All right, I got that, thanks. Article 16 is the Forum Ice Rink Enterprise Fund. It continues to be at $60,000 in expenses for the upcoming year.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 16.
Second.
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Article 17 is the PEG access.
Did you vote in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Article 17 is the PEG access enterprise fund, just over $605,000. Again, this is offline, meaning it doesn't come from the tax levy, it comes from the assessment and the Comcast and Verizon cable license fees for the upcoming year. And again, they're still meeting their revenue targets, so.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 17.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 18 is a request from Chelmsford Telemedia to transfer $90,000 from the Cable Television Public Educational and Government, or PEG Access Enterprise Fund, undesignated fund balance for the enhancement of the Chelmsford Telemedia Cable Access Production Studios within the Parker Middle School. And the breakdown is on the next slide, which is hard to read, and I'll prove it for town meeting. But in essence, those cameras and such, the whole need to be upgraded. In fact, Pete was telling the Finance Committee that they're running on like a Windows-based system that's no longer even supported anymore. So he really just feels that it's time that they've got to upgrade the switchers and studio cameras and monitors.
Is this the money why they pulled out of the ARPA?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, yeah, this
Okay,
is,
so this is
yes,
how we
this is
flip
how,
it.
yeah, he's going to
Okay,
fund it from
thank
his base balance, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 18.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 19 is the fiscal year '23 Golf Course Enterprise Fund operating budget, and that's level at $30,000 in expenses.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 19.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 20 is the annual appropriation of departmental revolving funds. The dollar amounts, the number of revolving funds, the nature of them remain unchanged, as does the dollar amounts. Again, if they come in under, which they are, particularly in the COVID years, there's no downfall. So again, we're just renewing the departmental revolving funds for the senior center trip program and respite care and so forth.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 20.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Article 21 is the appropriation for the Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund. They're seeking a $40,000 transfer from the sale of grave and lots to the Cemetery Improvement Development Fund. And it's basically the finalization stages of the improvements at Pine Ridge Cemetery. And
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 21.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Article 22 is a Community Action Program Fund. Again, an annual appropriation of $10,000 to provide matching funds for community improvement projects. And again, what monies are balanced at the end of the year go back to the town's free cash.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 22.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Article 23 is the Affordable Housing Stabilization Fund. No action. There's no funds in the account at this point. There was Article 24, we get into the Community Preservation Fund articles. The first one, as is customary, is for the appropriation of funds for the debt service, and their $50,000 for their administrative expenses, and allocating the 10% of that debt service funding to the reserves. And again, it's laid out in the pages that follow. Roughly, we're estimating $1.36 million in Community Preservation Fund tax surcharge revenues, a match of about $425 from the state. You can see the 10% allocation is $145,000, which is 10% of the town's 10% allocation. And then the debt service balance is on page 74. So you can see we're in the final year of our payment on the bond for Sheehan Farm. So roughly $500,000 in debt service for the upcoming fiscal year. And again, that goes down annually because we pay level principal, not level debt service annually.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 24.
All those in favor? Aye. 5-0.
Article 25 now goes into new projects from the Community Preservation Fund. The first is for Varney playground equipment. The request is to transfer $200,000 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve for the purchase and installation of new playground equipment at Varney Playground. That would, again, I guess, do the phase one of the project, including drainage, handicap accessibility, and other work. And I guess the good news is last Thursday evening, there seemed to be a resolution amongst all the parties up in the Varney Square and Varney Playground effort that they're all on board with this appropriation. Finance Committee supports it 7-0, and I think their efforts now are focused on perhaps a phase two to put additional equipment in beyond what's requested under this article.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 25.
All those in favor? Aye. 5-0.
Article 26 is the Center Elementary School playground equipment. We're nearing the end of the school playground refurbishments over the years. This one is a request for $82,000 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve for the playground. The 20-year-old playground equipment will be replaced with the $82,000 plus $138,000 from the school department and $50,000 from the center school PTO.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 26.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Article 27 is the Community Preservation Fund funding of $135,000 for the purchase and installation of outdoor fitness equipment at the town land right next door to us at the corner of Wilson and Chelmsford Street. This would be also supported by a $50,000 grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts to provide an adult outdoor fitness location at that site.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 27.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Article 28 is the McKay Public Library HVAC system for $150,000 for the enhancements to the ventilation at that facility. Again, you saw this earlier under the ARPA. It's now a Community Preservation Fund article.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 28.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Similarly, Article 29 is for the HVAC system at the North Town Hall. This is a transfer of $74,900 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve to improve the ventilation of that facility.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 29.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Article 30 is for the Center Town Hall HVAC system, $144,450 to purchase, install, and enhancements to the ventilation system at the Center Town Hall.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 30.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. 5-0.
Article 31 is the granting by the town of an easement at 115 Parker Road. This is part of the Warren Pohl property. As they're finalizing the preservation restriction and doing the land survey, there was an encroachment by the owners at 115 Parker Road in terms of their driveway. This would just allow them the right to pass and repass over the driveway for them and their future owners of the property. There was a site visit that I attended with two members of the Conservation Commission and the conservation agent with the property owners. Everybody's in full agreement on this easement, and I expect the fence will get erected so that when you want to access the property from that area across from the Wright Reservation, that they would basically be off the property and beyond the unpaved trail. But then, like I said, it gives the owners the rights to continue to use the driveway for their property.
So their driveway's on the town property?
Yeah, and so the other choice would be to rip it up and force them to construct a new driveway, a new entrance to their site, and nobody wants to do that.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 31.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Article 32 is the same situation at 43 Hall Road, also known as Kate Lane. Again, we've been in correspondence with the property owner there, and she fully understands and asked the town to grant this, again, because the alternative is just, financially impactful for the property owner.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 32.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. 5-0.
Article 33 is accepting an easement at 15 Harvard Street. This came through a planning board action where it's a emergency access easement at 15 Harvard Street as part of the development that was built over at that location to provide sufficient turnaround for fire and police apparatus at the site.
Where this is town meeting, I have no comment.
Oh, no, town meeting, yeah, it's not.
What-
You can abstain, but it doesn't.
It says
yeah.
we're going to acquire the
Yes,
easement?
we're going to require, it's already been deeded and signed and everything. Town meeting has to approve and you have to finalize the easement, so
So the
we're
property
acquiring it.
owner's already on board?
Oh, yeah. It
Okay.
was part of their project approval.
Okay.
I signed it. So what happened is the back corner of that, the condo association needed that back corner to make the fire truck turn around.
Yeah.
So they had the owner of 15 Harvard had to give access to that piece of land.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 33.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. I am going to recuse myself from Article 34.
Article 34 is a similar action with the development at 240 Groton Road. This is a sewer easement. Again, it's approved as part of the planning board approval of the project. Town council has drafted the easement documents, reviewed everything, and it's just allowing the town the legal right to go onto the private property for sewer maintenance purposes.
Any questions? Discussion? I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 34.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the last article, Article 35, is a disposition of a parcel on Summer Street. We've been before you for this .73 acre of town-owned land located at the corner here of Summer and Billrica Road. We found out what's driving this. The property on Bill Ricker Road is under estate. Basically, the property owner passed, and the heirs are trying to dissolve it. When they looked at it, they found out that the swimming pool was installed on the town-owned property there. So the two choices are to ask the town to sell the property, which has no benefit to the town because it's mostly wet, or they're going to take the pool down and the deck around the pool. So, what this would do is town meeting would authorize the board to, through the finance director, to issue, 30B and, to sell the parcel. Again, with benefit to the town is you get whatever money it sells for, and also it goes back on the tax rolls.
How do you decide what the value is?
But, we could pay for an appraisal, which is one way, or we look at the assessed value that the assessors have, and we can set a floor for bids. There's only going to be two potentially three bidders, right? There's three abutters that are there.
With a pool.
But the one who's at the interest is the pool, right?
It comes with the pool.
Right, exactly. So,
Any discussion?
I'll recommend approval, Article 35.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
great.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. May town meeting go as smoothly.
Ted?
Say, may town meeting go as smoothly.
Okay, next up, we have your bid awards.
Yeah, just two quick things. One is the personal property reval RFP. The assessor's office, under the oversight of the finance director, John Souza, issued an RFP for personal property revaluation. There were two bids received. The low bid, which was the complete bid, and the qualified bid is what's presented to you this evening. It falls within the budget, and they met the experience and technical requirements for this service. So I'd ask your formal approval to confirm the bid award for personal property reval services to Real Estate Research Consultants, Inc., as presented.
So this is done, this is done every year?
Yes, this is done every year for personal property reval, because it's an area of technical expertise that the assessors utilize out in the field, so it's.
Well, we don't approve the proposal every year.
No, but they approve, no, they go out and do personal property every
Right.
year, exactly. But no, we're
It's a
doing it as a
3-year
three-year
contract.
contract, right, with options, to renew, exactly for 2 years.
So you meant.
Was the second bid not qualified?
It wasn't complete. They only bid a subset of the work, which is basically the utility work. And we're kind of puzzled because it never said that you could only bid for portions of the bid, so it was incomplete. But in fact, when we looked at their work, it was more expensive than what this company had proposed.
Okay.
Who does it now? I mean, is it the same company?
Same company,
Oh.
yeah.
That's right, no.
So I recommend, I make a motion that we award the bid for the personal property reevaluation services to Real Estate Research Consultants.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
And then the other bid award is for the Hard Pond and Freeman Lake weed control. We issued an RFP through DPW, through our stormwater division over there, and there were two complete bids for that work. The low bid, qualified bid, was from Solitude Lake Management of $68,025. They are the company that's been doing the weed control in Hard Pond, so we're confident that they'll be able to continue that as well as now go over into Freeman Lake. So we'd ask your confirmation of the bid award as presented.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to award the Freeman Lake and Hart Pond weed control services out to Solitude Lake Management.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
The next item is on the request for budget earmark from the House of Representatives. The House budget is going to be released on Wednesday, and then it goes to a vote at the end of the month. Our state rep are still going to be there. Representative Golden has informed me, and I think others, that he'll be staying on as a state rep till the end of April, I think, to finish the House budget. And, Representative Gouveia is still there, as is Representative Howard and Representative Arcero. In terms of a budgetary earmark, since our last meeting, I reached out to Representative Golden, who sort of has been the pivot on the earmarks for Chelmsford. He felt that we could probably get between $200,000 to $400,000 of an earmark in the upcoming budget consideration.
Total?
Total, yeah.
Is that comparable to what the other municipalities have gotten?
That's
Seems
comparable.
low.
It's comparable to what we've received in the past.
Yeah.
Other communities who have, like Lowell receives more, and Billerica would receive more, but Billerica has its entire rep within its community. And more money goes to Lowell, in our case, than comes to Chelmsford, even though
I
we
would
have two reps.
expect more money
that
to
share.
go to Lowell, but
Right.
when you look at what's considered comparable
Yep.
towns,
Will he put in-
400K is low, isn't it, compared to other municipalities? Westford? Tewksbury? I thought we went through this with the last round of plus-ups.
Tewksbury got a bunch.
Yeah, Tewksbury got a bunch, right?
Will he put in whatever we ask him to?
Yeah, it doesn't mean you'll get it, though.
Right, no, but that's
And then it's
fine.
got, and then it's got to survive conference committee, and then get, through the final budget. So we can ask for something that's greater, but I asked Representative Go, I said, what do you think is realistically obtainable? And he gave me the figure of 200,000 to 400,000.
Is there, this might be a loaded question, but is there any detriment to asking for more? I mean, they're not gonna say, oh, they're greedy and smack us?
No, but you end up, if you ask for more, you end up with the risk of getting nothing. Because if it doesn't survive, then you don't get anything. There's no formula or inherent right to a community. Now, yes, other communities do
I would
get
think that if you
more.
ask for like 600,000 for one project, you risk not getting anything. But if you ask for 50,000, 25, 100, 200, like they can sit there and say, well, let's give Chelmsford 300 and
Yeah.
here's how we're going to do it. Like,
Yeah, you can do that. What the other thing we've done is we've asked for some on the House side, and then what you want to do is you want to ask Senator Barrett for a different project and get it on both sides. So that way, at the end of the day, you come up with more than 400. But this is the information I have from the representative in terms of what he thought, Chelmsford could get in the current environment.
Because looking at your list is only, I sat there for an hour today, just going through, I pulled up a map of Chelmsford, looking at different areas, wondering what else could, and having been at the high school courts, if we're going to
Yeah.
approve money, could we ask them for seating or stands of some type for around the basketball courts? Because everybody brings a folding chair and sits around the edges of the basketball court, and it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was maybe for some money for trees for along the common and, just maybe 50 grand for trees.
Yeah.
I was just trying to.
So I think the way to do that, though, is ask for an amount for park and playground improvements. So let's say you ask for 600, let's say you're saying, and then if they give us, if we get 4, but you ask for 6, you can do that. I would think that'd be a better thing than doing.
Well, I was trying to figure out,
This is-
like, could you say 25,000, 90,000, 200,000, and so if they sat there and said, well, we're at,
Well, then the risk is they pick and choose your priorities
Exactly.
for you if you
Right,
don't get all of
Whereas if you
it.
just
That's
give an aggregate number saying, and that was what happened before, we got $200,000 for playground improvements in Chelmsford.
Right.
And then we've decided to use it at Varney for the baseball field, and
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a good job capturing the
Yep.
other stuff we talked about, and it was
Yep.
just, there's a couple of the smaller projects
Yep.
that popped up.
But yeah, I think the other way of doing it is just say, hey, look, we want, and again, it doesn't have to all go through Tom Golden. We can go to Jim Arcero, we can go to Vanna Howard, we
Well,
can
that
go
was,
to Tammy Gouveia.
that was one of the questions that
But-
I had, is what is our next step from here? Because you've talked to Tom Golden, so
Right,
do
but-
you need help from us talking to all 4 of them?
I don't think there's a downside, but the reason I go to Tom is he's the most senior in terms of the leadership right now in the House. Now,
Go to
Yeah.
him.
Jim Arcero will be the next guy in a month.
Goes to Golden.
Right, but right now it's Golden because he's,
But it couldn't hurt.
no, I'm not saying, no, not at all. So, again,
I mean,
you,
the way we get more attention is to,
I asked,
Push
excuse
on
me,
them,
I asked Acero if anybody asked him about the other money.
can you get to the microphone, George?
And he said, well, I leave that up to Tommy, he's the senior, that's what he said to me, so whether he didn't want to give us any and just give me lip service, I don't know, but, so, yeah.
Okay.
I guess it can't hurt, but I don't think he,
and again, we can also, like I said, don't forget, we can also go to Senator Barrett. And that's the way to do it, is you don't want the same request in
Right.
both, because
Right.
you only get the one thing. But if you, remember, and that's how we got the funding for the North Chelmsford Water District, was we went through Senator Barrett for those fundings.
Well, I mean, whether it's Tom Acero or Senator Barrett, I think they're all fantastic men and do a great job for the town of Chelmsford.
So does anybody have any questions about what Paul has listed here?
And again, it doesn't have to be
Because I
through
had a
me. I mean, the
couple.
chair can make the request. I'm just pointing out that
Right.
now is our window on the House side and might as well thinking on the Senate side at the same time. But if it's more effective to go through, who cares? We just want the results.
Paul, is the second bullet that says Phase 2 additional equipment, 90,000 at Varney Playground?
Yeah.
Is that Phase 2, or is that like the add-on, is that Phase 1 plus?
Yeah, that's what they're referring to as Phase 2. It's the add-on to the 200,000 that being requested now.
But then they're still going to want more after that?
No, that would be the 90
that
would be
would
the
be
other
it?
stuff. That would be it. Yeah.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is the 200,000 that we just talked about earlier would put in, then there'd be space available to put in the extra 90. So, again, my thought would be, well, you could ask for the 90 for the playground as part of that funding, and then, again, whatever amount we get, the board would decide how it gets apportioned.
Can you say more about what the PFAS line means? Is that town money or for the water departments, or what
No, that
is
would be town money. We're in.
That's to fund what we're doing at Richardson Road?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
ongoing quarterly testing and operation of that system, which is, and I think what helps us is the PFAS, because, as you know, they're inundated with PFAS implications.
And the sewer capacity, the 300,000, the current effort's 350 right now?
And so it's roughly 300 annually going forward, as
Okay.
much as we know. And then if you went back to the report about if the town wanted to go and test soils at potential locations for a treatment facility, that next phase was identified as $80,000, and that, it may have been 70, I think I bumped it to 80, recognizing inflation, but, but that would be part of it.
And what do you think the number is for the last one on the center, the CCA Energy?
It depends on how cold the winter's gonna be, but, it could be 40, 50,000, I think would.
Was that to pay for the energy costs, or to look at
No,
doing something to make our energy
This would
use
pay
more
for-
efficient?
Yeah, no, we're, as part of our energy grant, we're putting energy improvements into the building. This would, in my mind, would be for the use of the energy in the building.
Oh,
Yes, in other words,
I thought this was-
we're installing insulation and so forth as part of the Energy Green Communities grant that the town received. So that's in works right now.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll get done before next winter.
I think I brought this up.
Yeah.
But I was looking at ways to make it more energy efficient,
Okay.
not to pay for the bill.
Okay. I don't know what's beyond what has already been budgeted to do, because they're scheduled to blow in installation and so forth. So I don't know what that number would be to go beyond that in terms of anything material. It's never been identified beyond what's been proposed to do right now.
Have they ever done, in the middle of winter when it's dead cold, have they ever gone in there with a heat gun and seen where the leaks and where the issues are?
I don't know. I know some of those stairwells are pretty warm when you go in the winter, right?
Yeah, they were warm when we went in there
Yeah,
a couple
so
of weeks ago on
but,
Saturday.
yeah.
I walked in there, and I think you were coming the other way, Virginia, down the stairs or something. It was after one of the sign holding Saturdays, but
It was
I needed the
unbearable.
men's room, and I was like, wow, this thing's like 80 degrees in the stairway. But I know I know companies will come in with a thermal gun, and they'll videotape and just go up and down each wall around each window, and then they give it back to you and say, here's where you're losing, but you got to do it on a really cold day. And
Yeah. Yeah, and we actually have that equipment to do that.
Right, so that's the type of stuff
Yeah,
I'm looking
okay.
at, like how do you either make it more efficient or put more efficient systems in? So would you put a number on that before you make a request?
Yeah, I mean, you can, but I'd be pulling it out of the air, to be honest. I don't know what that would be at this time.
So what do you recommend we do with that?
Well, I don't know what your priorities are amongst all these different items.
Right, if he's going to limit
Yeah.
his request to 500,000, he can't put all of these on there.
No.
And I don't know the fee for the 25% design drawings for the Vinyl Square project. I know that we spent $12,000 to get us that information, but last I checked with Gary Persichetti, we don't have that number of what is that 25% design fee. Because remember, that was the part that the committee wants to move that phase to get onto the MassDOT list for construction. So I don't know what that number is right now. And
We paid for a design fee?
oh, yeah, no, the town has to
before?
pay that.
No, have we paid for one before that we can use as a benchmark?
I don't think it's apples to apples, because that's a very complicated, complex project, I don't want to venture a number. And it wasn't that
But
quick.
if we don't
that-
get it through the earmark, then we have to pay for it ourselves.
Yeah, unless there's another funding opportunity from the state or a grant source to do it, but,
So what do you want to do?
Could we help Paul prioritize this list and
well, it's really your priorities. I'll be the messenger.
And see.
Yeah.
Are there any?
I mean, I don't have a problem asking for more than 400,000, but I think we should prioritize it so they don't decide what the cut line is or what they're going to fund. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If
But if we
if
do-
Tom Golden and the other House reps are comfortable going after 800K, let's tell them what the 800K is that we want, or whatever the number is.
Yeah,
Were you gonna say, Pat?
it is a bit of a black hole there, because, as we know, the state still has its ARPA funds and the balance left, and they haven't had a timeframe on when they're going to apportion those monies.
As Paul said, I mean, we could do 500,000 to the reps and 500 to senator. That would cover almost all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you give you a big going-away present.
Who, Tommy Golden?
Yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't he send the present to Lowell where he's going to land, George? Think about it,
I'm sure they'll do well.
Yeah, yeah.
They won't get hurt, that's for sure.
Well, they're looking for $39 million of a present, but it hasn't happened yet to pay for the school overrun.
One of the nice things about I know it wasn't what you had in mind, Ken, but the CCA arts use would help stretch the ARPA funding a little further. Because it seems like that's going to fall short.
Yeah, we didn't use the ARPA funding for utilities.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, she is.
We are right now.
She is.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Why not just Center for the Arts funding? I mean, does it have to be specific to energy use?
All right, we could just say, that's a good idea, Pat.
Nice job.
We could buy some time.
What dollar amount do we put on
50,000?
100.
Think of 50
Anybody
anyway,
go
yeah.
for 150?
At least 50. Some of these other things, the PFAS testing and remediation, how's that going to get funded otherwise? Does it have to go on debt, or
It's got, well, it's,
do we know the order of magnitude?
I don't
Yeah.
at this point.
But we have to put dollar amounts to these when you ask, right?
Right.
We have to put dollar amounts to all of them.
When do you have to have it in by?
They will take up the budget the last week of the month, so they have to have it in by the end of next week. I think his
These
deadline
numbers-
will probably be a week to get,
How many of these numbers are you going to have by then?
I don't know what it is you're looking for.
Well, like the
Yeah.
design drawings from Final Square.
Yeah.
You're saying we won't have that?
Keep trying. I'm hopefully,
Okay.
I may, I
And
may
the
have it.
PFAS testing and remediation, do we know what that? So what are you going to do if we don't know a number by then and it's got to get
Yeah.
in?
Well, we got like 350 for the PFAS
Right.
last time,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, you're scheduled to meet next Tuesday. I mean, you can finalize it then
Yeah.
and still meet that window.
Okay.
I mean, that would be and I can provide you with an update by next week.
Yeah, that's probably better.
Okay, all right.
Why don't we do
I'll
that?
update. All right, so we'll table that, okay.
Thanks, Paul. So next up, we have liaison assignments.
I think we should put all these in a hat and randomly draw.
Mix it up.
Well, I kind of say that tongue in cheek, but, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years and I seem to have the same one. And I wouldn't be against redoing these if anybody's open to that, but if people say no, then so be it.
I'm open. I don't have a problem continuing either.
It's all right
Thoughts?
with me.
What's this mean?
I'm fine leaving it the way it is. If somebody wants to leave one and, they want to open up a
Does
spot.
anybody want to change anything that they've had?
Just one thing I'd note, we no longer have an Energy Conservation Committee. That was the one that was replaced by the Clean Energy and Sustainability. So that's one less. But as far as the others, I'm okay with the ones I have.
I went through the boards and committees list, and I don't know if there's a reason why I know there's only so much we can do, but there's some that we don't have anybody assigned to, and I didn't know if we should or if there was a reason why we decided in the past not to. So well, Pat, you're on the Military Covenant Task Force, right?
Yes, right.
So, but should that be in this list in case someday you're not on it? Would we want to have a liaison to that? Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I would if I put it on there, you'd be the liaison basically because you're on it.
I
But
believe when we set it up, we said that there had to be a select board member on it. So if I were to leave it, then,
right, then we should put
So
it
it
on the
should be on
list
this
because it's like some of
Yeah.
these other ones where
Yeah.
there has to be a.
Wouldn't
Yep,
be able
that's
to
fine,
track
yeah.
it.
So we should
It
just,
has happened a few years back where someone asked and I was the liaison. It wasn't on the list and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of forgot about that.
okay, so we'll add that. And then the community, the Community Action Program, we don't have a liaison to that, but they have money that they dole out. Is there a reason we don't do a liaison? Or they just don't meet frequently enough to have one?
Like $10,000 a year, and there are all these little
Okay.
Boy Scout and Girl Scout projects. I mean, I don't think there's ever been any interest or,
And then I was thinking, depending where we go with the CCA, maybe it would be appropriate to have a board liaison to the town CCA Advisory Council and/or the Cultural Council.
I think we used to have one for the Cultural Council, but apparently not. But, yeah, I think that's a good idea for both.
To add, you want to add those now or later?
Well, Cultural Council, I mean, that's a continuing one, right? So definitely I think both now. Probably especially now.
All right, so if we add those, does anybody want to be the liaison to the CCA and/or the Cultural Council?
I'll do the CCA.
Thank you, Mark. How about the Cultural Council?
Nobody else wants it, I'll take it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, Pat, you're doing 12 now. If you want, I'll take it.
Well, some of mine I only.
Do you
had
want
some.
it? Who's taking it?
If you want it, you can have it, but I'll do it if you.
You can have it then.
Okay.
All right, so Ken's going to take the Cultural Council, and Mark's going to take the CCA.
Hmm?
And then there were things like the dog park and transient things like holiday and parade. I didn't think,
If you, parade is there. Celebrations and parade under capital planning.
oh, I'm sorry. I missed it because it began with a C.
Yeah.
Paul, his insurance advisory still, after 5 years, has never met.
yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering why we have it. It's-
At one time, it was very active.
Yeah, I went several meetings.
I mean,
Right.
I've been in it for 5 years and
And
never
right
been-
now, everything has just been static.
So that may be needed.
They're not,
Yeah, maybe
they're not
needed.
listed in Tricia's list. Can we list who's on it in the,
Aren't they
website
selected by the
list?
They're selected by the union reps. And
oh,
By the
That's-
unions.
and then there's one non-union employee, which is Regina
Regina.
Jackson.
All right.
so the dog park advisory, we don't need a liaison for that. They seem to, is that correct? We don't have one now, that's why I'm asking.
They've never asked for one.
Okay. And then the other ones I noticed were the North Town Hall Advisory Group and the Middlesex Canal Commission.
They never meet, do they?
I didn't even know we had, is the Middlesex Canal Commission even active anymore?
They are in Billerica. Yeah, they do meet, they do have an annual meeting, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
So that's probably not critical.
Is there a dinner?
Is there?
And North Town Hall's never asked for a liaison? Okay. So the ones we're going to add to this list are the Military Covenant Task Force with Pat, the CCA Town Hall Advisory with Mark, and the Cultural Council with Ken.
And again, I'm not trying to stir a pot here, but I'm just curious, and Pat, you can tell me to back off, but like NEMCOG, right? To me, that's really educational to be on.
Yes.
And so, does that ever rotate off?
It does, but it's to your benefit for me to stay on it. It's for this town's benefit for me to stay on it. It really is.
Okay.
If you call somebody at...
Say more. Say more.
Because I'm on NEMCOG, I'm on the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is responsible for programming federal tax dollars in this region. And because I'm on there, Paul can tell you, and if you call people at NEMCOG, I watch that very closely. And in the time I've been on there, I mean, look at, every year, almost every year, we get a project, a federal project in Chelmsford. We get down here at Merrimack Road and 129, we get Concord Road and Boston Road.
Yeah.
We're gonna, one,
Your favorite one was the traffic signals at North Road.
the one that I didn't
Didn't
want.
want.
The first one was a long time ago, Parkhurst Road and Smith Street.
Yep.
What else? Hunt Road, the bridge, 495, that bridge. We're getting bridges over Gorham Street and Westford Street.
Westwood Street. They've,
We're going to get a huge one that's going to redo
Chelmsford Street, yeah.
the Chelmsford Street from the center all the way to Fletcher Street, to redo, both sides of that street,
including underground utilities.
including underground utilities. And it takes a while to get familiar with how the MPO works. It really does.
Fair enough. No, that's a great answer.
And the other one is the signalized off-ramps to 495 at Chelmsford Street, right?
Right, and that's going to be coming up soon, too. And whenever, sometimes, we don't get a lot of money. We get typically $9 to $12 million a year. But sometimes there are not projects that are ready to be put in there, that are to be programmed. So whenever that happens, I come to Paul and I say, what do we have for $1.5 million that we can put in there? And sometimes we get it. That's probably how we're going to get the signals at 110 and, from 495. And there's only 7 voting members. 2 are from the state, the representative from the Secretary of Transportation and a representative from Mass DOT. And basically whatever they want is what happens, but not always. And I think it's important that I'm there to kind of look out for Chelmsford. I look out for the entire region. I'm not going to, say that I'm, have blinders on for Chelmsford, but I think Chelmsford has benefited by me being on this.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's fair.
Okay. Do we have to vote on the voting member assignments? We don't, do we?
Except for NIMCOG.
Yeah, NIMCOG you do, but I think that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other ones we don't need to. All right, thanks, everybody.
And the LRTA one, the chair does in usually in
You'll send out an
August.
updated list.
Yeah, Christina will get it updated.
Okay.
So next we have the Select Board Representative to NIMCOG. Is there any further discussion?
See, I saved that agenda item, now we can zip right through it.
There you go.
So I'll make a motion that we appoint Pat Wojcik as the Select Board Representative to the Northern Middlesex County Council of Governments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, we kind of touched upon the other one. We were doing the warrant. This is the Article 9 article, the consider and sign the preservation restriction for 1 Billerica Road. Again, you have the document, the Historic Preservation Restriction Covenant for the Fisk House. It's been approved by the Historic District Commission and the property owner. And again, the purpose is to maintain the architectural significance of the property and maintain it for conservation and preservation purposes. And as I noted, under that no alterations shall be made to the exterior of the building of the property unless of a minor nature or the Historic District Commission determines that it will not impair such characteristics, or C, required by casualty or other such emergency. And more importantly, the grantor agrees at all times to comply with all federal, state, and local laws, codes, bylaws, and historic district review standards applicable to the properties of the Chelmsford Historic District. And basically it carries on to the assessors and the signs. And if there were a circumstance where it had to be modified, that's how it would also be modified. And most importantly, they Item 6, they agree to at all times maintain the property and building exterior to at least the same condition, state of repair as it existing as of the date of this restriction. So basically, it's a way of ensuring that the property is maintained as it stands today and that it doesn't fall into disrepair like we saw so many years for the Oddfellows building.
Any discussion?
So you need to make a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to approve
sign
the
it.
acceptance
Yep.
and sign it, again, contingent upon town meeting approval.
So I'll make a motion to accept the preservation restriction for 1 Billrica Road, contingent upon the town meeting approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
And, we should note a big thank you to the Historic District for working with the seller of the land, with
Yeah.
the seller of the land and everything, because they really did, they turned around fast.
It was a
Everybody in the
quick turn.
committee,
Yeah.
they did a great job working
Yeah.
with legal and the seller and so forth. So thank you to them for doing that.
And also note the planning board, because they sort of kicked it off by,
Yeah,
when
by
with
making
the
it part of the
A&R, the
requirement.
approval not required plan contingent on the preservation restriction.
Okay. Next up, we have the regular session minutes approval for March 28th, 2022. Are there any comments before we take the motion? Thank you, John and Darlene.
Good night. I'll make a motion to approve the Select Board's regular meeting minutes from March 28th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. And I have an announcement on the determination of releasability of executive session minutes. The minutes for February 14th, 2022, Segment 3 have been released, and the minutes for March 14th, 2022, Segments 1 to 4 were determined not releasable at this time. Next up, we have liaison reports. Pat?
Okay, a couple of things. On Saturday, April 23rd, the library is going to have an Earth Day environmental fair from 12 to 3 p.m. It's going to be outside at the Greenway at the library, and they're going to be giving away free sugar maple saplings on a first-come, first-served basis. So that'll be good. And just a sad passing of Rolly Lindstead, was a longtime police officer in town. He's going to be sorely missed, and George will probably have more to say about him.
Yeah, it was big. It was Dwight yesterday. It was big. Good kid. Nice family. Big family. And he's got a young. There's a young Lindstead on the force now. I think it's his nephew. Is it his nephew?
I do not
Grandson,
know.
Yeah. Oh, he was a nice guy. He was in NEMLAC for a long time.
Anything else, Pat?
That's all I have.
Mark?
I'm all set, thank you.
George?
I'd like to thank the Greenwood, Dennis Greenwood's group, the water, wastewater, whatever it is.
Stormwater.
Yeah, so stormwater people. They did a nice job today on the corner of Granville Road and Davis Road.
Right.
Cleaned it all up. I think they seeded it and everything, so it looks, hopefully it'll be fine now.
Right.
Thank you, George. Ken?
I'm good.
I just have a couple things. The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee is welcoming anyone and all to attend a virtual meeting this week on Thursday at 7 o'clock. Some of the highlights for their agenda include the Vinyl Square Improvement Plan, the new Varney Playground, and beach and ball field improvements. And the planning board agenda for this Wednesday, April 13th at 7 o'clock at the McCarthy Auditorium has a lot of rich content, and there are 2 public hearings continued, one for 9 Acton Road, which is the 22-unit multifamily townhouse, and the other for the River Neck Road industrial warehouse public hearing. That'll also be continued. And we no longer have any press with us in the Zoom room, so With that, it is 8:18 PM.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Probably just want to announce that we don't have a meeting tomorrow, even though there's one posted.
Oh, yes, so we'll be canceling the meeting that is posted for tomorrow. That was a placeholder in case we couldn't get through everything that was on tonight's agenda,
And we did.
and we did.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
Aye, 5-0.